Ryan, you're from Kalispell, correct? Okay. Missoula, Sims, St. Regis.
You got it.
All right. Just want to make sure. You ready? Okay. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's debate among the four candidates running for the Democratic nomination in Montana's Western Congressional District, known as District Number 1. I'm Mike Dennison. I'll be moderating today's hour-long debate, which is sponsored by the Lewis and Clark County Democratic Central Committee. I'd also like to thank the Helena Avenue Theater and the Montana Playwrights Network for providing this space for the debate here in Helena. Let's introduce our candidates from left to right. We have Sam Forstag from Missoula, Matt Raines from Sims, Russ Cleveland from St. Regis, and Ryan Busse from Kalispell. As we mentioned, they are running in Montana's Western Congressional District, which covers most of 16 counties in western Montana, including the cities of Missoula, Kalispell, Bozeman, Butte, and Hamilton. District 1 is an open seat with no incumbent, since Republican Congressman Ryan Zinke is retiring. The winner of the June 2nd Democratic primary election will compete this fall against the winner of the GOP primary, a Libertarian candidate and possibly an independent. Before we begin, a few words about the format. Each candidate will give an opening statement, 90 seconds, after which I'll be asking the questions. The candidate fielding the question will have 90 seconds to answer, and the other three will have 1 minute to respond. The candidates will also have a 2-minute closing statement. Let's get started. The first opening statement will be from Mr. Forstag.
Hi friends, I'm Sam Forstag. I am running for Congress here in the Western District, and I've spent the last 8 years working as a wildland firefighter across Montana, across the West, the last 4, working as a smoke jumper for the U.S. Forest Service, and the last couple as a leader in my union's local. It's probably not news to any of you that we have had a widespread attack on public service, public servants, on our public lands that so many of us hold dear, not just in this state, but in this country. And I spent a lot of the last year and a half fighting back against Elon Musk and Doge as they gutted about a quarter of the Forest Service in this state. And they're not done. But when we fight and when we organize, we can win. And 2 Valentines ago, when they fired 360 Forest Service employees just in this state in one day with no cause and no notice, and most of those people were making less than $20 an hour, while we organized, we hosted rallies, we got public information out there at peril to some of our own jobs, and we got those folks their jobs back. And that fight is not over, and we got a little bit longer to go, but we need to keep fighting because we can slow them down. Sometimes we can stop them, and we can win this seat so that we can start rebuilding from the ashes of what they have been burning down, so they can try to buy it all up and sell it back to us for parts. We do not have to let that happen, and when we win this seat, we can build back a better version of all of these things. We must, we have to. I would love your help doing that. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Mr. Raines, your opening statement.
I'm Matt Raines. Thank you all for coming. So I got into this race because, like a lot of Montanans, I think we're tired of being represented by New Jersey, by Maryland, by California, by Minnesota. I mean, shit, Zinke moved to Santa Barbara just so he could be in the in crowd. I mean, my family goes back, I'm 4th generation on my family ranch. Goes to the 1890s. I went to West Point. I was a Montana cadet there. Duty, honor, country is embedded in me. Was served in the military. I was an Army captain, flew Black Hawks, served in Iraq, which is vital now more than ever with this atrocity that's going on in Iran. Traveled the country. I did over 60 countries as a photojournalist. Africa, Middle East, Asia. I'm very familiar with the other side of the world. Came back, was an engineer inspecting power plants here back in the States with my West Point engineering degree. Would go around, do about $1 million with repair findings, hand that over to the Boilermakers, let them go fix it. Got my MBA from Washington University in St. Louis, and that's where I met my future wife. She had a horse, I had the horse ranch, and so we came back to the States, or to Montana. And then here I was chief of staff at Montana Farmers Union for 5 years, where we started the first of its kind USDA meat processing facility, which helped local ranchers and farmers retail their own animals. To me, that is the type of voice that Montana deserves in Congress. And to be honest, that's the type of voice that Congress desperately needs right now.
Thank you. Mr. Cleveland, your opening statement.
Yes, first of all, thank you all for being here today. Nice to see so many faces. My name is Russ Cleveland. I am originally from Western Montana. I'm a Navy veteran, former small business owner, a coach, and a rancher from St. Regis, Montana. I chose to run a little over a year ago after pediatric cancer research was cut as part of NIH cuts and DOGE after losing my oldest daughter to leukemia in 2020. So my agenda is largely based around platform and childcare and some of the things I have experiences with, but one of the biggest issues that we face is actually choosing candidates that have integrity. And right now, that integrity is at risk in this very election. We have DC insiders and special interest groups trying to flex their muscle yet again, the same reason why Democrats have lost for so many years in this state. I'll give you one particular instance that I went to D.C. to march with thousands of other veterans to stand against corruption, and one of the meetings I took there was about data centers in this very state. I reported about it online, and one of the first calls I got was from our chair saying, hey, be careful about talking negatively about data centers. AFL-CIO has asked us not to report negatively on these issues. That's the same organization that has endorsed one of my competitors, Sam Forstag. The leadership in that organization is out of touch with 83% of Montanans who stand against data centers. We don't want them here. So we have to be careful about who we hitch our wagon to. Now is not the time for picking the best show pony. It's picking who's going to stand up for the best interest of Montana. That's why I'm running. I'm tired of the same old song and dance. We need someone who's got integrity that's going to stand up for the interest of Montanans. I know I do that. I have respect for Mr. Busse, who I think is also doing that, and we're going to change the format here in this Montana race.
Thank you. And Mr. Busse, your opening statement.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good to see so many people here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. You could be doing something fun outside, and here you are trying to make the world a better place. That's a pretty good thing. You should give yourself a pat on the back. I'm Ryan Busse. I'm running for this seat because I think I owe this state something. I've lived in Kalispell for 31 years. Sarah and I were married on the banks of the Flathead River. We've raised 2 wonderful boys there. And this is a state that gives people chances. It gave us a chance. We bounced around in rentals and finally afforded to buy our first house at $127,000. Man, that felt pretty good. But right now, people like my 2 boys, 18 and 20, 18 and 21, they can't afford to have that kind of chance. I ran for governor a couple years ago, and a lot of you know that, and there's a lot of people frustrated with Democratic politics right now. And I have to tell you, I respect Russ a lot. He's running a hell of a campaign. Good man. One of the tenets of my campaign is that I think we should hold ourselves to a higher standard, Democrats to a higher standard. Sam, you've talked about continually about keeping dark money out of this primary election, something I think we should do, something Russ thinks we should do. Yet today I see on your website a literal invitation to dark money to come into this race. Literally, if you go on the website, media, you will find an instruction of what to say, when to say it, what dark money, DC orgs to come in here and buy this election. We have been campaigning our tails off, meeting with people. They deserve something better. They deserve something better than big DC dark money coming in here and doing this. 2 days ago, there was a photographer here from these dark money organizations getting ready to buy our election. So if you see here in the next few weeks, all of this big money flooding into this election, trying to usurp the sort of work that we're doing, meeting with people face to face, doing what I did during the gubernatorial 187 in-person events, that's wrong. It's wrong. We should hold ourselves to a higher account. I'm running to be a different kind of Democrat, somebody who says, somebody whose actions and words match up.
Your time is up.
Thanks for being here.
I would love a response.
Yeah, just a minute. We'll let you respond.
Thank
The
you.
audience, please let's hold the applause during the questions here and wait till the end. And the first question goes to Mr. Forstag, and on the heels of the comments from Mr. Busse, let's talk about dark money in this race. What's your position on whether outside groups, outside spending is an issue in this race. Have you accepted it or disallowed it? What's your opinion on it? Mr. Forstag.
Absolutely. Outside spending is a problem in this race. In a state where this last Senate election cost $280 million, in a place where you got to fight tooth and nail to get some support for homeless shelters, that is a problem that we should be outraged at. You know what else we should be outraged at? We got folks on this stage, someone who is worth $25 million, coming after the only working class candidate in this race for support from labor unions. We should be outraged after an election where half of union members did not vote for Democrats, while Mr. Busse was running for governor, running even with the presidential ticket, when most people making under $100,000 a year, people like me, did not vote for Democrats, that we are falling into this trap again of trying to turn working people in labor against working people who care about conservation, working people on one side against working people against the other, because that is exactly what the big companies who are trying to buy our elections want to happen here. And if we want to build a coalition that has working people in it, and union members, and young people who stayed home or swung to the right last election because they did not see cause for hope in the candidates that they were offered, well, let's give working people like me a chance to fight for ourselves. And let's run our first union candidate in over a decade as a major party nominee. This is our chance to do that. And so I am not accepting a dime of corporate PAC money. I am not accepting a dime of dark money, and I think it is a damn shame that we have Democrats on this stage trying to villainize labor and the AFL-CIO, because I am proud to have the endorsement of the AFL-CIO, SEIU, home care workers across this state, firefighters unions, my own union of federal employees. That is the kind of coalition we need.
Thank you. Mr. Raines, your thoughts on outside money in this race?
So outside money has a lot of different takes on it, and I've been very straightforward from day one. I got into this race, I left my job, Montana Farmers Union, to win this thing in November. And that's gonna take a crap load of money. It's gonna take probably $5-6 million. And as much as I love to know that the grassroots movement is there and split 4 ways, it's not gonna get us across the finish line, and we're gonna be looking at a Republican back in Congress representing Montana. We have to accept that fundraising right now, there's an order of operation, and we have to get elected, and then we fix shit. And my campaign, I mean, I don't understand the aggression against PAC money, because I am in this race to win.
Mr. Cleveland, your thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, I respect that Mr. Raines is transparent about where he's getting his money from. I think that's important. Transparency is the key part of this. I'll be transparent. I have done well in life. I got out of the Navy. I'm a disabled Navy veteran. I had $80 to my name, and I did build a business that served the Colorado community, a child care business that was a multi-million-dollar company. That's what I want everyone to have the opportunity to do. That's why I'm running. We need to support small businesses. We need to support veterans. We need to support college students. That's the entire premise of this campaign. I do not believe we do that by taking shortcuts. Shortcuts that I believe are these special interest groups, DC lobbyists, DC insiders that want to call the shots and tell us what Montanans want, tell us what we should run on. That's not how this is meant to be. We are representatives of the people, not representatives of someone in DC largely who has never even stepped foot in our state. That is what got us into this position as a party, and that is why we have to run on the premise of I'm individual contributions only, and I will continue to run a clean campaign that's for Montanans by a Montanan.
Thank you. Mr. Busse, your response.
I too appreciate Matt. He's full of transparency there on taking outside money. Look, I've dealt with a lot of frustrated voters across this district and state, and they have a right to be angry. We have, I'm running hard on universal health care. I think we're 50 years behind the curve. Democrats should offer big, bold solutions, and they should go fight for them. And they should be the kind of people that are believable. When you say something, you should do it. You can't say you don't like dark money. You can't say you're for the Montana plan and then put a literal instruction booklet on your website about how to pour dark money into this race. It says for the primary, I just looked at it. This is not a general election thing. This is the instruction for big DC dark money to pour as much money into this race, to usurp the work that Russ is doing, or Matt's doing, or I'm doing? Why are we okay with saying one thing and doing another? That is why people are frustrated. They have a right to be frustrated. It's about time that Democrats' actions match their rhetoric. We can do better. We can push for universal health care. We can send somebody to Washington, D.C. who will throw an elbow even into our own people if we need to. That's a hard thing to do. But we should hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Thank you. The next question goes first to Mr. Raines. Mr. Raines, you mentioned your experience in the military. Let's talk about the war in Iran. Do you support President Trump's decision to attack Iran or not? What should the next steps be to resolve the conflict, and what role should Congress play, and would you play as a congressperson?
There is not enough time for this question.
Yeah.
So I do not support Donald Trump's move into Iran. First of all, he usurped and went around Congress, and Congress let it happen. They rolled over, and that is a disgrace. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution says that the right to declare war is reserved for Congress to prevent an autocratic president that just wants to take and use the military like a play toy. That is not acceptable. The military, that's our sons and daughters out there. Those are my friends. Those are my college classmates that are still in the military out there being used like pawns by Trump. That is not acceptable. And now we're in a shit show. So there is no easy way. I mean, we just saw yesterday where they tried to negotiate. We knew that wasn't going to happen. There's no solution. They went in, they kicked the hornet's nest, and then is trying to run away, and those hornets are pissed. We are talking about a military of 600,000. There is no easy solution. They are going to keep the pedal to the metal. And if we do pull out, there are terrorist organizations salivating to backfill that government. We have put the Middle East in a very, very dangerous situation.
Mr. Cleveland, your response.
Yeah, as a fellow veteran to Matt and some of you in the audience, I recognize, I too agree, we should not even be in Iran. That's why we should not allow one man to decide the fate of thousands of Americans and put the economy in this country at risk. That is what it's, I mean, we've seen a higher increase in the last month in the price of fuel than we have in the last 59 years in this country. That's Trumpism. And everyone who supports him supports that. It all comes down to money. Collapse the market, buy oil low, say we're back opening the Straits of Hormuz, oil prices surge, they enrich their pockets, we're back in conflict. This is a playbook from the Billionaires 101. And we need people in Congress who understand how the military works, who understands the economics of this situation, and who have a spine to stand up against this administration and other congressmen and senators who aren't going to play these games with big corporations who want to buy off elections like this one and actually fight for the American people, actually fight for Montanans.
Thank you. Mr. Busse, your response.
This war in Iran largely came to pass because we don't have any representation in Congress. I think you should be upset about that. If you filled up your truck or your car this morning, you probably are upset. If you think about the sort of moral decay that it's forcing upon our national or international representation, or you should be upset about that. We can have a Congress that stands up to this administration. It's possible. Right now, we have a Congress who represents corporations, billionaires, the wealthiest in America. But we don't have representation that stands up for our military men and women. And let's be clear, our military is an amazing fighting machine with incredible people in it. But we're doing them a disservice by not having a Congress that stands up and represents all of us, our friends, our sons and daughters, and our interests. Congress is supposed to be a co-equal branch of government. Right now, it's a sycophancy to one man. It's gotten us in a lot of problems, and it's going to get us in a lot more. We got to win this seat back in November.
Thank you. Mr. Forstag, your response.
I read somewhere that modern warfare in this country is an American soldier being asked to fire a weapon that costs more than they will make in a year at somebody who will not make that much money in their lifetime. And war in this country, whether it is the war with Iran that our Congress was too cowardly to even take a damn vote on, much less stop, or war after war that we have been stuck in since the 1940s, the last time that we actually took a vote, that our Congress actually stood up and put themselves on the record about whether we were actually going to war, is something that is fought overwhelmingly by poor and working folks at the behest of wealthy folks who are supposedly representing us in Congress and the Senate. And right now, the average worth of a congressperson in this country is $3 to $4 million, depending on the day and depending on how good the stock market's doing. That is a damn shame. Too many of the folks representing us do not have skin in the game when it comes to big decisions like whether we are going to ask people to risk their lives, whether that is risking your life overseas or risking your life at home. We need people in Congress who actually know friends and family, folks who have served, folks who are in the economic class that is overwhelmingly serving in our military right now and who care that much more about whether we are going to go waste billions of dollars a day in a war with Iran while people I go talk to outside of Bozeman are facing their rent being doubled and being priced out of house and home in their last affordable housing option. That is something that we should all be so damn angry about. And if we are really as angry as we ought to be, well, we need to be doing everything we can to get those folks out of Congress.
Thank you. This next question goes to Mr. Cleveland. Mr. Cleveland, you mentioned your background in child care. As you know, child care is often unaffordable for many people in Montana or inaccessible. I'm just wondering, as a member of Congress or the federal government, if they have a role and what they should do to try to bridge that gap and make child care more available and more affordable for Montanans.
The answer is yes, we do have a role because childcare is the foundation of our economy. My company was the first company in the country to open remote learning centers during COVID, providing essential care for essential workers during that period when kids were forced out of schools. We showed that there's a model you can do that safely. We are also the first to help get universal pre-K launched across the state of Colorado, a plan I have on the national stage. This is all connected. We've seen the dissolution of our Department of Education over the last year, and my plan includes changing that to a Department of Youth Development, which connects birth to workforce. It shows that child care does help the economy. Every dollar invested in child care is a $4 to $9 return in local economy. Universal pre-K raises those learning outcomes not just in first, second, and third grade, but all the way into junior high and high school. And that cascades into economic opportunity for our juniors and seniors in high school. We need programs that actually set them up for workforce success. Some schools allow students to graduate with an associate's degree through programs like Running Start and Gear Up. Why not offer that to every student? And if you don't want to go to college, that's great. There's trades out there that need tradesmen. And so we should allow space in those junior and senior years for students to pursue a trade so that they can graduate high school as an electrician making $60 an hour instead of being forced to make $10 an hour, which is just plaguing this homelessness population that is 10% in the ages of 18 to 24 versus a 0.23% in the rest of our adult population. It's time to do this differently. And this starts with education. It starts with childcare and understanding that those two things are connected.
Thank you, Mr. Cleveland. Mr. Busse, your response.
Yeah, we're spending $33 million a day on this debacle in Venezuela. We're spending $1.6 billion a day on this thing we're doing in Iran. We have just approved a budget for $191 billion for ICE. That's more than all but 14 militaries on the face of the earth. It's more than the U.S. Marine Corps here at home. And yet we tell young parents trying to make a living, trying to pay the rent, pay for exploding grocery prices, that we can't help with childcare. We're making the wrong decisions in this country. Again, we could have representation that fixes things like the current gap in the Best Beginnings scholarship program, but we don't. And so we've got open spots in a town like Missoula, but we can't get our representatives to fix the federal formulas for the funding. Our priorities are out of whack. It's not that we don't have the money. We don't have the fortitude and we don't have the representation. We can change that. That's what this election's about.
Thank you. Mr. Forstag, your response.
Well, it seems like we got some unanimity here. Absolutely. We should have universal child care and pre-K in this country. We can afford to do all of that. We can have universal pre-K by expanding programs like Head Start and Best Beginnings. I was one of those kids who had somewhere to go, thanks to Head Start. There are a lot of people right now who don't know where they're going to send their kids. And one of those people was a fellow named Cole, who came to one of our first events of this campaign up in Kalispell. Cole is about my age. He's got a bitchin' mullet, and he had a 2-year-old on his lap, and he said, I have never seen a place in the Democratic Party for myself before. So I'm a forester up here, and I make $47,000 a year, and right now I don't know where I'm supposed to send my daughter. And he is involved in this campaign. He has attended events since. Cole is exactly the sort of person that we need to reach out to and bring back into our coalition. Cole should be a Democrat. Cole should have a choice for a candidate whose lived experience reflects his own, somebody who knows what it's been like to struggle to afford housing in this state for the last 5, 10, 15 years, to struggle to afford your health care, and for someone like me who would like to raise a family in this state to not be able to conceive, even when I'm working 1,000 hours of overtime in a year, how I would afford to raise a kid and still keep that 980 square foot place I got in the edge of town. That is most Montanans' experience. That is not the experience of most people in Congress today. If we want to pay for all these things, we just got to make sure the richest people in this country and corporations are carrying their own weight, and we need to fundamentally reform our tax system to make sure that we are paying for these things without going into more debt. That is what I'm running to do.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Raines, your comments.
So I agree with Russ. There is no better investment in the American future, the Montana future, than investing in our youth and our education. Full stop. I've seen the world. I could cross into a country and within hours know exactly how much they prioritize and invest in their education. If it's just the boys, if it's girls, it's embedded in everything that you live and exist. If you follow the laws, how the children behave. And so Montanans are workers. We want to get out there. We want to make a living for ourselves. Childcare should not be a limiting factor that it doesn't make sense to go out and work. We need to make sure that our wages make it available to where you can go and make a better life for your family. We need to make sure that federally we support the state with funding that they can help minimize the cost and the drain on childcare for our individual families.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Busse. Mr. Busse, you alluded to this a bit in your opening statement. Montanans all over the state are facing a housing market that is unaffordable for many, or take just a huge chunk of their income. As a member of Congress, what can or will you do to attack this problem?
Yeah, several things need to be done. First off, I know all of you have listened to the news or watched it on TV or seen it on your phone and seen this affordability term pop up. And it's this sort of word made up by professors. We don't really know what it means, but we know what not being able to afford rent means. A lot of people in Montana are facing that right now. We know what it's like to not be able to afford a house. And we didn't just get here because of this one big term. We got here because there's 50 or 60 or 100 decisions that have been made by the people that we sent to Washington, D.C. to make that worse instead of making it better. Again, back to my earlier answer about priorities. We could have a priority that instead of sends money to all the places that we're sending it, largely in the pockets of the most wealthy people in this country, we could be doubling down on improving things like making sure that interest rates are frozen or held low for first-time home buyers. First-time home assistance could be doubled or tripled. We could have a rental assistance program that triggers, like we are here in Montana. This is the state with the least affordable housing market in the country. It's worse than California, per capita income to average price of home. We cannot have a community, any community, where the people who make the community go have to travel an hour or 90 minutes outside of the community, like what's happening in Bozeman right now, what happens in Missoula. It's even starting to happen in Kalispell. We can have a system where we dedicate resources to making things more affordable for people instead of making things just better for wealthy people. I'd like to see us do that.
Mr. Forstag, your response.
Yeah, about a week ago, I was sitting with a gal named Debbie in her mobile home at King Arthur Mobile Home Lot, just outside of Bozeman. And Debbie was telling me how her lot rent was $530 in 2021, and it is set to be $970 this year. and that is her last affordable housing option. And Debbie said, well, when I was in my 20s or 30s, when I was younger, if older folks were having to live like this, I would be so angry. And we should be so angry. But being angry is not enough, and it has never been enough just to be angry. That has to go somewhere. And I feel like year after year, we have had a politics as of late that is just based in anger and does not take us to the next step. And what we're seeing right now, what we're living through when they gut USDA home loan programs like the USDA self-help program, rural home loan programs, is the result of a politics of anger. And we have a housing crisis in this country, especially in western Montana. We have had a housing crisis before, and you know what we did? After World War II, we stepped in on a bipartisan basis, and we invested billions of dollars in 1950s dollars, and we built hundreds of thousands of units of homes. We have done that before, and we have to do that again. It is going to take a whole lot of money. Let's not dance around that. We have the money, and just as important as what we spend it on is where we get it. We have got to get rid of this consolidation of wealth and power at the top of the income ladder and with large corporations. We have got to raise the corporate tax rate. We need a minimum effective income tax rate for people making over $1 million a year, and we need to invest that money in a timeline that working people like me can actually see the results of, because we do not have 10 years to wait for people like me or people like Debbie.
Thank you. Mr. Raines, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's hitting us all. For example, like Sam was talking about, if you're a 20, 30-year-old right now, if you're in college, just got out of college, first job, maybe you're starting your family, 2/3 of your wages or salary are going toward your home, rent or a mortgage. That is unsustainable. That is what is pushing Montanans out of their communities. Everyday Montanans are either having to leave the state or move further and further down. The first thing that we can attack is right now we have corporations that are coming in and Airbnb-ing us out of our own communities. We need to eradicate that. We need to make sure that Montanans own Montana homes. And then federally, there's a lot of things that we can do through grant programs to incentivize the development of more homes. The Pandora's box is open. The country knows that Montana is a gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful place to live. They're gonna keep coming. We need to be ready and we need to sustain that. So utilities, we can set up to make areas that homes can be developed. And then we need to incentivize the contractors to stop cherry picking the mansions and actually incentivize them to come back and start building lower income, middle income, single family homes. Thank
you. Mr. Cleveland.
Yeah, the only reason I was able to buy my first home was because it was a VA loan, which was no money down. The only reason I was able to go to school is because it was a GI Bill and I didn't have lifelong student debt. I was recruited out of an MBA program to help restore a market in Denver for US Bank that helps take people in a target market and get them into homes, get their businesses started. I understand the lending. Those opportunities allowed me to take the risk to start my own business. Moving back to Montana, I realized in St. Regis we had a housing crisis there too. It's not just in Bozeman. So I helped build a 7-plex that I actually built myself with my own hands to help put teachers in houses that they otherwise couldn't find. Housing was too expensive. I've done the work. I understand the changes that need done in lending reform. I understand the changes that need done in code revisions, in federal grant money, in builder incentives, in opportunities that can actually correct this housing issue. That's wages, that's supply, and that is legislation that actually gets people back into affordable housing.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Forstag. Mr. Forstag, you've kind of alluded to this as well as most of the candidates have. We have a huge growing disparity in this country between the haves and the have-nots, a massive wealth gap. I'm wondering what specifically, if you're in Congress, would you be advocating to try to address this problem?
Yeah, I want to be upfront about this, as you might have noticed. We need a minimum effective income tax rate for incomes over $1 million a year, 30%, because there's no reason that somebody making $1 million or $1 billion a year should be paying a lower proportion of their income than somebody who's taken home $80,000 or $90,000 as a smoke jumper, as a carpenter, or well, the average of $60,000 a year that people in Montana are making right now. Because when I was working as a jumper, well, 36% of every paycheck went to taxes and all the rest. And if you are one of the top earners in this country today, your effective income tax rate is about 4%. That's unjust. That's no way to run a country. And that's precisely why we've been forced into this mindset of scarcity where they tell us we can't afford childcare and we can't afford to tackle a housing crisis, but we can afford to go to another war. That is a lie, and that is only true if we believe it. So we need that minimum effective income tax rate. We need to raise the corporate tax rate so it is not the lowest that it has been in decades to at least 35%. Because, as I said, just as importantly as the things that we need to invest in is getting at that concentration of wealth that is being hoarded by large corporations, by the richest folks in this country. We are a wealthy country. We are a rich country. We can afford to fix these things. There is no reason we should have elderly folks and people struggling with mental illness living on the streets right now. We need to fix that now.
Mr. Raines, your response.
So I'm really proud of what we did with Montana Farmers Union starting that meat processing co-op, because what it did is we gave 60, 70 member owners an opportunity to control their destiny. Ranchers in Montana are tied, or were tied to the big four packing plants, corporate monopolies, the middleman. They put their life and soul and everything into making these animals, and then they were left to the whims of what the market was. There are solutions, real solutions out there that it's not just playing percentages, it's actually finding solutions that will put money in the pockets of Montanans, will give our lives that we are doing and living right now an opportunity to grow and expand. And so those are the type of solutions that I look forward to. It's not just swinging the tax back and forth. That doesn't last. That goes by political party. Finding real world solutions that make your lives better, that's the hard route. That's the difficult route. And that is what somebody in Congress really should be focused on.
Mr. Cleveland, your response.
Absolutely. This is where experience matters, because it's great to talk about taxation, but unless you understand how this actually works, you don't know what loopholes to close. Sam's right. We do need to increase taxes on the wealthy, but you don't do it in income tax. You know why? These folks making over $1 million, they don't take a W-2. They take their income in loans against their own assets, and they don't pay any tax on that. So it's closing loopholes like stepped-up basis. It's applying a tax, a 5% tax on just our 986 billionaires in this country would inject $4.4 trillion a year into our economy. That would pay for the $1.3 trillion universal health care program. It would pay for a $1.1 trillion universal child care. I'm tripping on my tongue. And it would pay for $2 trillion to actually start addressing the $40 trillion debt that we have as a country. That debt load that's climbing by $1 trillion right now every 100 days. So it's closing loopholes and it's addressing the ultra wealthy by an actual wealth tax, because they don't take a W-2 like you and I. They have assets and they're borrowing against those assets at no taxation, and that is where the system is broken in this country.
Thank you. Mr. Busse, your response.
In this country, we have decided that we're going to tax our labor at 35, 36, 37%, sometimes more. That's why we're in this. That's why we're in this terrible situation. Billionaires, big corporations, the very wealthy and powerful, they have something that all of us don't have. They have lobbyists, they have attorneys, they have buckets full of cash to pay people off. And so they have instituted these loopholes and rules like the carried interest loophole. It allows a hedge fund manager who makes 30, 40, 50, $100 million a year to pay a flat 10% tax. How do we allow that to happen? It's because we don't have representation. We have to close these loopholes. I want to remind everybody, much of the frustration that led to the election of Donald Trump is based on this wealth disparity. We need to be the party that offers solutions and fixes it. And MAGA, the again in MAGA, when do a lot of people say that was? 1950s, 1960? The top marginal income tax rate in 1955 was 91%. 91. Ronald Reagan was a champion because he lowered it to 50%. So these times and these conservative heroes, they were okay with a much different tax system than we have now. Democrats should stand up for working people. We should represent us, not the system that's propagating this.
Thank you. The next question goes first to Mr. Raines. Mr. Raines, we've talked a little bit about health care. Let's talk specifically about it. Health care, as you know, remains difficult to afford or access for many Montanans still. What is your solution to this persistent problem? If you're a member of Congress, what will you be advocating for?
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. When I was a kid, I got doctored out of the vet bag first because my parents were scared to go to the hospital. You didn't know how much it was going to cost you. And we're getting back there rapidly. This big, beautiful bill really attacked our rural healthcare system in ways that we have to reverse that immediately. It's Medicaid, which is the foundation for keeping our rural clinics open. We've lost a lot of the funding for it, and then what they did, and it really pisses me off with the smoke and mirrors, they took $300 million that they're going to give to the hospitals right away. You have to spend it by October, right before elections. And that money came from Medicaid. Well, the problem is that is a one-time lump sum that's just going to vanish. What they stole from us was Medicaid support perpetually. And so for years out, we're going to have lost a lot of Medicaid support for Montanans across the board. So our rural health clinics, we have 9 counties in Montana that don't have health care clinics. We are so far behind. This is not about just filling in the gaps. I live 45 minutes from an emergency room. I shouldn't have to mercy flight from my home just to get to a hospital. We have to attack this like Montana exists as a rural state and find healthcare solutions for us that is appropriate for Montana.
Thank you. Mr. Cleveland.
Yeah, healthcare is the whole reason I'm in this race. I shared with you all that I lost my daughter to leukemia at the age of 13. While she was taking her last breath, we were still receiving bills of $300,000 a month for care after insurance. Tell me how that should be okay in this country. Just a year and a half later, my youngest daughter got sick with a different rare lung disease. The only medication that could cure her, insurance did not cover. It cost $10,000 a dose for a medication that cost $286 to manufacture. That is the healthcare system in the United States right now. We need Medicare for All Plus. And when I say plus, that includes mental health, it includes vision, it includes dental, it includes rural health network support. We cannot afford to wait any longer. Healthcare is the most expensive thing for most Americans, and it's the biggest opportunities for small business and rural America to actually start taking care of Americans again. And I will fight feverishly for this one thing, if nothing else, because it matters and it crosses the bridge on every divide. It brings parties and people together. We all need health care at some point in our life, and it's time we start acting like it.
Mr. Busse.
I was on a conservative radio show just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago or so. Third caller, older Republican guy from Hamilton. He says, I don't know what you're going to call it, but you got to fix this. I can't take this healthcare stuff anymore. We are living in the election cycle where we're going to look back and know this is the time that the tide turned in this country for universal health care, and I am fighting hard for it. Every single citizen in this country deserves universal health care. If we can have an economic system that creates trillionaires that fly rockets into space on the weekends with their friends for entertainment, I think the working people of this country can have health care. It's not too much to ask. We have to send Democrats back there who are strong enough to do it. A big reason we don't have universal health care, yes, there are Republicans who have stood in the way. Yes, powerful insurance companies have stood in the way. But there are way too many Democrats with their hands in the pockets of those big insurance companies who have stood in the way too, who have taken the lobbyist money, the DC dark money. They've said one thing and they've done another. It's time for something better. It's time to send somebody back there who's not afraid to nudge people of our own party out of the way and get stuff done. This is a big thing. It's literally life and death for our country, and we should fight for it.
Mr. Forstag.
Yeah, I was speaking with a woman in Libby a few months back who told me she is paying $38,000 a year for her health coverage because she makes too much money to qualify for Medicaid, running her business, and because she has a pre-existing condition. So she doesn't qualify for a whole lot of other plans. That is a broken system, and she knows it. I have torn my calf in a wildfire and limped off 3 days later to go to the only orthopedist in town just to find out that, well, my plan is out of network, so I'm paying for that out of pocket. That is a broken system. And I actually think most people, regardless of who they voted for last year, know that because we can feel that. And details matter here, right? Universal health care, well, my mom is a nurse who struggled to provide for my little sister and I, and she will tell you We've got universal health care in this country right now. You just don't get it until you show up in the emergency room, and that is the least effective, most expensive, least compassionate way to possibly provide health care as a country. We are all paying for it in our premiums. It's just like it says in Scripture, I promise you'll pay every penny before you leave this place. We're all paying it right now. So how do we get people access in a broken system? We look at the part that works. We look at Medicare. We give everybody the option to join Medicare. We expand that coverage so it covers vision, hearing, and dental, and long-term care. And we increase the benchmark rate. And those old ACA subsidies, well, we bring them back and we triple or quadruple them so that that's free health care for every working person in this country, because I don't want to let little Aaron Flint or the Republicans say we're forcing anybody into Medicare. We don't need to force anybody. I'm being forced into the private health insurance corporations' plans, and I would love the choice to go join Medicare and make sure that I'm actually getting the health care I'm paying for.
Thank you. This question goes first to Mr. Cleveland. Mr. Cleveland, many people believe President Trump has overstepped his authority as president in many ways. I'm wondering if you agree, and if you're elected, what can or would you do as a member of Congress to rein in the president's power and actions?
Well, I think the simple answer to that question is yes. I hope we can all agree on that. He's out of his mind. I think there needs to be a series of cognitive tests that are independent that should determine whether our leaders responsible for quite literally the most powerful military and armament system in the world are capable of handling that responsibility. We need to restore that authority to Congress, not limit it to one person. We also need to make sure that there's checks and balances in our congressional system so that one person can't do something like tariffs that destroy entire economies across the North Line. We've seen that in Eureka, in Havre, all along the North Line, 30 to 40% reduction in tourism, parts, grains, you name it. That costs more now to us as Americans in the form of essentially a federal sales tax because one man thinks it's going to make America great again. It hasn't. Inflation's on the rise. Cost of goods is on the rise. And we can no longer afford to keep paying for the decisions of one person. And so the answer is simple. We need to restore checks and balances, put the power back in the hands of a Congress that makes these decisions and not just one person.
Thank you. Mr. Busse.
Common theme here from me. Democrats can't just say these words. They need to act on them. Let's not kid ourselves. This is not a normal time. This administration would be the most corrupt administration in Nigerian history, much less American history. That's the truth. We have people personally enriching themselves to the tune of billions of dollars through crypto scams, through selling pardons. And we don't have enough Democrats who are acting like it's that big of a deal. So the very first job of a Congress that does its job is to hold people accountable. And if there's been criminality, we should hold them criminally accountable. We cannot be people who say one thing and do another. We say our house is on fire, we say it to the cameras, like that one right there, and then our leaders go back inside that house and have a drink like nothing's going on. Why do we think voters don't believe us anymore? If we believe there is corrupt action in Washington, D.C., and come on, there's bucket loads of it, then when we get a real Congress there doing its job, we must hold them criminally accountable or it will never end.
Mr. Forstag.
Yes, I think we got some agreement here as well. We have agencies in the government right now that have violated more court orders in the last year than some agencies in the entirety of their existence. And we have a Congress and a congressman right now representing us in western Montana, or I suppose two across Montana, here in the Eastern District 2, that are too cowardly to stand up and buck their own party when we have flagrant violations of the law. That is not the sort of representation we used to have as a state. We used to have representatives, well, like even Burton Wheeler, folks like Democrats that were willing to stand up to FDR and when the courts were getting packed. We deserve a representative that is willing to buck either party, regardless of who they're caucusing with. That is the kind of district that this is, and that's the kind of representatives that we need. And I think the thing that we need to zoom out on and look at is, how did we get here? How did someone like Donald Trump get elected? How do we have majorities right now in Congress that are wrecking this chaos across our country? Well, it's because a lot of my coworkers, a lot of my union members friends who voted for these guys, well, when we were fighting Doge and I would ask, why the heck did you vote for him? They would tell me more often than anything else, you know, both parties are just the same. And that is an incredibly frustrating thing to hear if you see the results of one party's leadership. But what they are saying is when they look at Congress and they look at their options on the ticket, what they are too often faced with is a choice between one millionaire and another and deciding which one of those millionaires is going to stand up for working people like us. And that is no choice. That is not the choice we deserve in a democracy. If we want to give working people representation, let us fight for ourselves. That's what I'm running to
Thank
do.
you. Mr. Raines.
So, Mike, yes, Trump is out of control. But I want to take this question to have a heart-to-heart with Montana Democrats, because it doesn't matter how much we know and understand what's going on if we don't get elected. And right now, in Montana, since I was born 45 years ago, federally, between the Senate and the House, we have only won one race that's been open or held by a Republican. One time in 45 years, we've lost 28 out of 29 races, and that was Senator Tester. Senator Tester, he won in the district 2 years ago. He is the only approved solution that we have as Montana Democrats for how to flip this from red to blue. So we need to address this administration. We need to put checks and balances back in there. But it will only happen when we get somebody elected as a Democrat from Montana in Congress. So what I tell people is look at all the candidates and go find your best knockoff John Tester. That is what I find is our solution moving forward.
Speaking of which, our last question before we go to the closing statements, and keep it quick, we're getting a little short on time here, but my question, going first to Mr. Busse, is why are you the best person on this stage to take on the GOP nominee and turn this district blue? How are you going to win this race?
Appreciate the question. It's a critical time, no doubt about it. I've run a race across this entire state, held 187 in-person events. Many of you supported me, and I appreciate that. I've been in people's homes. I built a base of support, and much like Brian Schweitzer did, I lost my first election. It was tough. Many of us remember that day in 2024. That was a rough one. But we built something. We learned what we did well. We know what to improve. We have a base of support. I still see my stickers on vehicles across that far western district, since we're over here in eastern Montana here today. And I think I owe it to this state to take what we've built and put it to work and win this thing, because it's so critical that we do it. I'm a hunter. I'm a fisherman. I spend time with my kids. I love this place. I'm going to fight like nobody's fought before. I'm going to run the kind of campaign that will make you all proud. We'll go anywhere, talk to anybody, including all my neighbors in the Flathead. It's not full of Democrats up there, if you haven't heard. These are my friends, my cohort, my people, the folks I grew up with, and I know we can win this thing.
Thank you. Mr. Forstag.
How we win this election is we look at all the folks that we just lost as a party last cycle. A majority of people making under $100,000 a year did not vote for Democrats last year. When I go talk to our local firefighters union and they do their annual survey, for the first time ever, more than half of their members voted for a Republican last cycle. And a lot of young folks, but by the numbers, did not come out and vote, or they're young guys like the folks that I work with who swung to the right because they did not see cause for hope in politics. Those are all the people that used to be the base of the Democratic Party not so long ago when we were not a red state. And they're the people that we need to bring back into this coalition, because the Democratic Party that I want to be a part of is the party of working people. It is the party of unions. It is the party of the future and of young folks and of everybody who still cares about the future of this country and this Constitution. So that is the coalition that I am building here. Thus far, this campaign is endorsed by everyone from Senator Bernie Sanders and the Congressional Progressive Caucus. That is over 90 of the most progressive members of the U.S. House, the folks that we are going to be working with to get things done, and over 30 current and former state legislators from both parties. That includes 4 Republicans. That is the kind of coalition we need to win this district. That is the kind of coalition we're going to need to actually deliver on the things that we're all talking about here on the stage. That is exactly what I will do as your congressman.
Thank you. Mr. Raines.
Yeah, as Sam was saying, guys, the district is red, Montana's red. And so the only way that we are going to flip this seat is to have somebody like myself. My family's got a lot of Republicans. My friends from Sims across the industries, whether ranching or farmers union, there's Republicans everywhere, but they know me. They know the Birdtail Ranch. They either like had our cows or our horses. They've had the genetics. And so we need a candidate from this side of the aisle that can go and sit down with them, can chat just about, the weather, the drought, the effects, irrigation. And then you move into, we need somebody. And what they're gonna ask, the one question, I love everything we've talked about, and we've had a lot more questions at these debates. The one question that's gonna matter in this race, in the general, is what kind of Montanan are you? 60% of the district's gonna ask that question first. And right now, the Republicans are in their little quagmire that I love, and they need to keep it up, but one of them's gonna come out of there. And we have to make sure that our candidate, when it's two people on the stage here, is the Montanan that you all are proud to vote for.
Thank you. Mr. Cleveland.
So the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. I'm not that candidate. That's the same thing we've tried over and over and over again. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not endorsed by Bernie. I'm not taking money from anyone. We have to choose something different and understand that those things don't win in Montana. They haven't won before. They'll continue to fail. I consider myself an independent Democrat, someone that's not beholden to this national party that, quite frankly, has screwed up and is continuing to screw up because they think they can choose our candidates for us. Montanans get to choose, not DC insiders, not dark money groups, Montanans. That's who I represent, proudly. I've been doing it now the longest, for over a year. 50,000 miles driven, tens of thousands of conversations, not just with Democrats. Just 2 weeks ago against Aaron Flint in Superior, I showed them what to be scared of because I converted more than half that crowd of Republicans in my camp. And I'll continue to do that in rural Montana, into the general, and we will win in November, proudly. I'm excited to share that day with you.
Thank you. Now we go to our closing statements, 2 minutes each. We'll start with Mr. Forstag.
Yeah, I, in the course of this campaign, have been thinking a lot about history lately. And I have been thinking about the sort of representatives that we used to send to Washington from Montana, folks who swung above their weight class. Because we used to elect people like Jeanette Rankin, who changed the way this country conceives of who can be a congressperson. We used to send people to Washington like Lee Metcalf, people who penned the Wilderness Act and changed the way that we manage our public lands for the better. And we used to send representation like Mike Mansfield, who took his 8 years mucking in the mines of Butte and brought that experience to Washington to carry out the programs of the Great Society and to create programs like Medicaid and Medicare and NPR and PBS, the programs that are under attack right now because of the failures of the National Democratic Party, because of our failure to provide people options of real representation, people who know what it's like to be mucking in the mines of Butte or to be jumping out of an airplane onto public lands to put out wildfires. That is the kind of representation that I intend to bring. We are a great country. We have done great things. We can do those great things again. We have never achieved progress in a straight line in this country. It has always been fits and bursts. And right now, it feels real hard. And it feels real hard, or real easy, to fall into despair. We cannot do that, and we cannot have another politics and another campaign that is just based on anger and despair. We need a politics of hope in this country and in this state to talk about that fact that if we have had representatives who built programs like that, we can have representatives right now who make sure this is rock bottom, to expand access to things like Medicare, to expand what Medicaid actually covers, to make sure that everybody has access to housing and healthcare and childcare in this country, and that we pay for it by taxing the folks who are getting rich off of all those broken systems. I would love your help with that. Thank you.
Mr. Raines, your closing statement.
So I left my job proudly to run in this race because of the urgency of 2026 to me. This is the time, the race. We need to flip this seat right here and now. And to me, I am the type of Democrat that can get this done. Now with that, we've had representation that really doesn't like to talk to Montanans, and we know that. And so it's been exciting to do these forums and be out here and showcase who we are as your representative. I want everyone to make sure that you understand that when I'm in that seat, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Independent, Republican. My door is open and your problems are my problem. It doesn't matter if you've lived in the district or Montana for 5 months, 5 years, 50 years, 5 generations, or 500 generations. My door is open and your problems are my problems. That is the type of representation we used to get. And it's become so politicized and so against the Montana core values of taking care of your neighbor. We shouldn't be talking politics in the first 5 minutes of helping somebody or meeting somebody. That is not how I was raised. Your neighbor needs help. It doesn't matter. You're over there doing everything. It doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. That is the type of representation that I want to see back in Congress. And it's the way I was raised. And it's the 45 years of my life taking the harder path, whether it's West Point imbuing that duty on our country to serve. And that's why I'm back up here. You serve, you have an obligation after the military because of West Point, but you have a lifetime obligation to continue to give back to your communities. And that's why I'm here, because the urgency of this race is off the charts. And now is the time. And we need the right kind of Montanan that can flip this seat, get in there, and represent Montana the right way.
Thank you. Mr. Cleveland.
Montana has a rich history of being purple. And I think this is our opportunity to make Montana purple again. It's in front of us, but not if we choose the wrong candidate. We have to choose someone who has the lived experience, the professional experience, the passion to go out there and do the work. This will not be easy. It hasn't been easy the last year. I can tell you 12 months ago when I was doing this, there were a lot of Trump hats and Trump flags flying around. But I can tell you there's a lot less of them now, right? You don't see them. There's a movement happening. We have an opportunity to capture it as Democrats in this state, to redefine what Democrats look like, what we stand for, what we act like, to restore the working class, to protect agriculture, to protect small business, to stand up for veterans, to protect education and invest in it the right way, to do things like universal health care, universal child care, things we should have done decades ago. I mean, just this week, Mexico passed universal health care. Come on. Come on. But there's one way to do it. We have to cut out the corruption. And you have to choose a candidate that will stand against all of it and has the entire time, who's not trying to deceive you. Everything is out front. I'm proud to be individual contributions only. I'm proud to be grassroots because that is Montana. And we can win that way, on the ground, talking to our fellow Montanans again. That's the work I've been doing. That's the work I'll continue to do. And I'd ask for your support. Those of you in District 1, I know we're outside of district today. I'd ask for your vote, volunteers, donations. Let's go out there and get this thing done. This is a great year. This is a great opportunity for all of us.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Busse, your closing statement.
This is, it's an incredible place, incredible state, incredible group of people. Not long after I moved to the Flathead Valley, I went to work fighting for the Badger 2 medicine, a place that became sacred to me. Eventually, Sarah and I named our son, youngest son, Badge, after the Badger 2 medicine. And I realized right away that this state to which I owe everything deserves something from me. I started to fight for that place, even though in my professional career, just being an overt Democrat, fighting for an environment, doing something like that could cost you your job. In fact, mine was threatened all the time. But I fought for that place. I continued for 25 years. I've done nothing but fight for Montana. I've been in Congress. I've testified here. I've written everything fought everywhere, never been paid a penny for it. I've been in peril many times, and I think we should look ourselves in the eye, in the mirror, and realize that if we do not win this seat and this majority back in Congress, that the next 2 years in this country are going to be very damn dark for all of us. Darker than even what we've experienced so far. It's time to send somebody back there who can win. I'm in this because I believe I can win the general. If I wasn't, I wouldn't be here. Campaigning's hard. It's hard on your family. My 2 boys, they've also fought for this state. Lead litigants in the Held case. My wife Sarah's fought for everything in Kalispell, public education, public libraries, in the face of a community that sometimes doesn't appreciate all that. It's hard work. But this time calls for something different. Somebody who will fight. Somebody who will stand up. Somebody whose words mean what they say. We can get this done. I can feel it. It's so much different than 2 years ago. It's a hopeful time. It really is. It's frightening, but it's hopeful. Imagine what you're going to feel like the day after Election Day. We put that blue flag back in western Montana and the state's purple again. It's going to be a pretty good feeling. We're going to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have a hand for all of our candidates. That wraps up our debate for this afternoon. I'd like to sincerely thank all the candidates for taking time out of their busy schedule to be here. The primary election is June 2nd. Make sure you're registered to vote, and make sure you vote. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, everyone.